Hey guys, this is Echo Soundworks, and you are checking out a massive tutorial on ADSR sounds. So what we're going to be looking at today is actually going to be answering some questions that we've got coming through the network on some other videos, asking how to create sort of risers and that sort of stuff, like any transitional type of effect from maybe a pre-drop to a drop. And I actually personally use massive all the time for this. I will sometimes use samples, but a lot of times I like doing it in a synth just because I have way more control over everything that's going on. So instead of showing you just how to do one type of riser, I'm going to show you what I would consider to be the three most common types of risers in EDM music and music in general. So let's play this little demo real quick. All right, so you can see here behind Massive and Logic that I have three different tracks. Well, don't care about these two down here. We'll get to those later. So we have these three different Massive tracks right here. And each one is what I like to think of as a different type of riser. Type 1 is a tonal type of riser, because it has a tone. Type 2 is just a noise sound that goes upwards, that basically expands. And then type 3 is kind of like this hybrid, where a lot of times you'll just have a pitched up note, or you'll be playing a couple notes at a time. Maybe you'll do a little ARP pattern in the tonic of your key, but it sounds like this. Right, so it could be any wavetable, it could be any type of oscillator, it's just whatever you want. But when you layer all three of those together, you get a really nice transition. And you can choose, obviously, which one's going to be more prominent, the tonal, the noise, or the little blippy one that rises in pitch as it goes. That's totally up to you, but when you need a really big sound to kind of play along with like a snare build, using all three of these at once usually works. It's also really interesting to the ear, I think, to have some different rhythmic values going on, like maybe one's modulating with an LFO at a quarter note rate and another one's modulating at an eighth note. Makes it more interesting and unique to the ear. So what we're going to do in this tutorial, we're going to recreate a few of these different types of risers. Now, I do want to just preface all of this with, it does not matter what you choose for the noise type, the oscillator waveform, that's not going to make the sound rise. That's just going to be the characteristic, the tonal characteristic of the sound. You can choose anything you want. The main thing you want to pay attention to is what we do in the envelope. So I'm going to go really quick over the oscillators. All right. First thing you're going to do in oscillator 1 is just pitch this down to -12. The reason I am doing that is this is a 4-bar riser, and I need to have enough room for the pitch to go up without getting too high and shrill and annoying to the ear. So like I said, the wavetail position does not matter, totally up to you. I'm going to route it all into filter 1. Oscillator 2, I might stack this with one more oscillator sound, so we'll do pulse width, just to get a little bit different tonal characteristic, but something still similar. Again, pulse width, the position, amp, all that, totally your call. All right, so now we have just a tone. We need to make it rise, but before we do that, we can add some cool effects to it, like maybe some ring mod to our first oscillator. We can add a little bit of phase. Oh, let's do that to the second oscillator. We can add a little bit of phase to the first oscillator. All right, now we have a tone. I'm going to add a little bit of noise and make sure it's routed all the way to filter 1. Speaking of filter 1, let's just choose a low pass 4 filter. All right, so there is the sound. It's not crazy or hard to set that up. But let's go to our voicing tab, give it 2 voices of unisono so it's a little bit louder. And now we're going to go to the envelopes, which are the really important step in creating this type of sound. So you need to use a few different types of envelopes, and the way in which you set them up is going to determine how quickly this thing will rise. So a really cool feature in Massive envelope, the envelopes in Massive, is this little delay knob here. What this is going to do is it's going to tell Massive to hold off on starting the actual attack, decay, sustain, release, and all these morph points right here by amount that is determined by how much depth you move this little knob in. So this becomes really important because you can't even really get a good 4-bar riser in Massive with just cranking the attack up. You're going to have to use the delay. And pairing that with a few different types of envelopes can be a very powerful tool. So that being said, what we're going to do is we're going to turn the delay up a little here. Just a little. Turn the attack all the way up. Keep the level all the way up. Turn the decay down a little. I'm going to turn this level up all the way. So once it reaches its peak position, it's not going to really ever, kind of dip back down, I guess. Now for the release, we're going to turn the release down. We don't want to have a release on this. We just want it to Once the sound reaches its highest pitch, it's just going to stay there. So now we have this envelope, and it won't affect the sound because I'm using the third envelope. I'm going to need to modulate something. So the easiest way to do this is to modulate the pitch of your oscillator. So if you want it to go upwards now, we'll just modulate up to positive 64. So essentially we're telling the oscillators to start at negative 12 and then move upwards to 64 using this envelope shape. We'll do the exact same thing for the second oscillator as well. So now we actually have a tonal riser. All right, but let's clean it up. So anywhere that you use any type of oscillator, you're going to want to put that envelope on. All right, and I'm even going to apply it to things like the noise. So I'll turn the noise down and we'll apply a little bit of that. So then there's not a lot of noise happening right at the beginning. It kind of builds into it. So that's all things that you can play around with. You can even mess with the color and have the color get brighter, which is cool. All right, and then to soften up the sound, reverb's always helpful. You can do reverb, dimension expander, delay. You can go third party. That doesn't really matter a whole lot. It's just whatever gives your mix that space that you need. I actually personally like using the envelopes again on the reverb, so it gets more wet as that reverb as that envelope progresses. And I'll even pair it with a second envelope shape sometimes just to make things a little bit more interesting. So maybe we'll go to envelope 2. We'll do a similar type of sound. I'll do the attack up all the way, the level up all the way. Maybe I'll turn the decay up, turn this level up, and we'll actually give this some release. So then as this is progressing with that third envelope in the reverb actually has a release feel to it, which might be cool. All right, now let's equalize this a little bit just to give it some more proper frequencies. Let's turn down the low shelf a hair, turn this frequency up, and probably turn the high shelf up a little. All right, so I'm liking how that is sounding. It sounds pretty cool. And like I said, it's really simple to do inside of Massive itself. And again, you can swap out the oscillators for more unique tone. I do actually like using some sidechain compression on it. You can do this in Massive, it's just not as bouncy. But you could do it with an LFO or a performer, and we've had some other tutorials on that before, so I won't cover that in this video, but that's basically a tonal riser. It's really easy to make. You can control everything, tempo synced. It's really nice in that element or that aspect. All right, so let's look at just the white noise type of riser now, which is actually a lot easier to make than that one, and that's not a hard sound to make by any means. So let's just make a new instance in Massive. All right, so for this, you're not going to want any actual tone. You want this to just be noise. And so we're going to turn off the oscillator. You could use a LFO with a noise shape to kind of create some noise type effect in the oscillator, but for sake of ease and brevity, we're just going to go straight to the noise oscillator with this. So what you're going to do is in the noise oscillator, you're going to choose a noise that you like. I like using bright noise a lot. It helps the mix kind of pop out in my opinion. And then you're going to turn the amp up and the color to whatever you want. And what you're going to do is you're going to do an envelope shape again that will rise as the sound progresses. Okay, so let's jump over to our third envelope. Same thing that we did before. Add some delay, crank up that attack, keep the level up. The decay you can turn down a little, keep the level up on the actual decay level, turn the release down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to modulate the amp of the noise that we just created, modulate pretty far with it. We're going to do the same thing with the color. So now we have this. All right, if you want to apply a filter, you can control some of the frequencies you don't want. And again, reverb effects are going to be your best friend for this type of sound. So this is a super easy sound to make. The only thing you have to do is create your envelope shape and apply that to the noise generator. Now, I will say that it's helpful to pair this with a sound or a tonal riser that doesn't have a lot of noise. Sometimes a coarse effect can be cool on it too. And again, I like side chaining this a lot. So now both of them that we just made. All right, and we might turn down this, so we can, right now it's a little bit too loud once it opens up, so I can turn down the cutoff with the third envelope. So as the sound starts to get louder in this amp, it's going to filter out some of the high frequencies. All right, so those together will be pretty cool now. Okay, let's look at this third type of sound, and this is this riser type. So that kind of has a tonal blippy synth element to it. And so what we're gonna do is it's this one right here. If I play it again. All right, so we're gonna remake that now, and it's a pretty easy sound to make as well. It's a little bit more in depth than the noise, but it's still easy to make. So oscillator 1, this has a real tone to it, so we're going to be using oscillators. I used a square sounding wave. Again, you can swap out the waves with whatever you like. I'm going to turn the amp down, have this, the filter, you can just keep where it is, doesn't really matter. So we're going to pitch this down to -24. It's the same idea as that tonal riser that we did first in the video. You don't want to start too high, otherwise you don't have a lot of space for movement. All right, so I'm just going to use one oscillator. So we're just going to jump now to the... you can do whatever envelope you like. So we've been using the third envelope, so we'll kind of keep in that vein. So we're gonna do the we're gonna keep the delay down on this one. Just turn the attack up, keep the level up, turn the decay and the decay level up, and then the release you don't have to do much to if you don't want. So what we're gonna do is now we're gonna use this to pitch up the sound from -24 to +64. So essentially what we just made was just the tonal riser again, right? But what we need to do is to get that little bounce to it, we're gonna add an LFO to it to create some actual movement. So I used the 5th and 6th, so we'll go to 6th first. And in this, I just used a, we'll go to 6th, we'll sync it. You always want this to be synced. That's the whole reason you'd be doing this in a synth. So I'll do 8th notes at first, and we'll just do the saw wavetable or waveform and push it all the way up to the top of the curve if you have another waveform loaded down here, because I just want it to be straight up saw. So I could have left it in the middle, but I will turn it up just because. So what we're going to do is now take this and modulate the amp. All right, and we can use this to actually modulate the pan too, which will be really cool. All right, effects will help soften this thing up. So we'll do sync delay and we'll do reverb. And for the sync delay timing, it can be really anything you want. I did some crazy times, I think 3/16. And then I think I did 2/... let's leave it 1/4. All right, turn the dry wet down and damp feedback to taste. So I'm gonna choose a low pass 2 filter just so I can control a little bit of the frequencies. All right, so we have a little bit of a kind of riser here, and the insert effects can be used obviously on this. I actually like using the frequency shifter. With the right amount of dry wet, it can kind of be a cool sound to thicken things up. All right, so now a really cool little tip and trick you can do here. As you have your build or your song start to build with your drop, what you can do is just take this, and we'll have this, let me copy and paste. We'll do it with the initial version. So that's how to make it. You're basically doing the tonal riser, but with an LFO on the amp of your oscillators. So what we can do here, which is really cool, we can just take this and we can then just change the rhythm timing with the LFO. So this first one, the LFO is happening at a rate of 1/8. But as the drums start to get quicker from this section right here to right in here, it's really cool to just load up another instance of massive, just duplicate it, and then give your LFO that's controlling the amp of your oscillator, just give it 1/16 for the value. So now it's going to be quicker. And then what I did was I bounced this to audio. And then I'll take it out of the first section that I want at 1/8. And then what I'll do is do that process again, and I can go to 1/16 or 1/24. So here they are together. That's 1/8. And then right here is 1/16. All right, and then we can get even faster with it. All right, so we can get even faster with it. We'll do the same thing here. We'll just bounce this to audio. And we will do 1/24, and that will be even faster. Bounce it to audio again. So we can chop it up where we need, pop it right there. And now we have a kind of blippy tonal riser that actually changes the LFO rate as it goes along. All right, so let's listen to the risers and everything we remade through the tutorial. All right, there it is, guys. There's the 3 different basic categories of risers for any type of music, especially EDM music. If you guys have any questions or comments, let me know below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. As always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.